Rodgers then brought up the Sandy Hook shooting and said the news media was intentionally ignoring that the shooting wasn't real, that it was a government inside job. Rodgers falsely claimed to Pamela Brown that there were men in black in the woods by the school, and he asked if she thought that was odd.
This report right here is probably the most egregious, irresponsible acts of shoddy, disgusting, tabloid gossip journalism you will ever see. All right, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is making an announcement later this month. He will actually be saying who his running mate will be for his independent run for the White House. He discussed it on Fox News, and he may have let slip who this person might be.
And we know that Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback for the New York Jets, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, is a prominent name in that. Why?
Well, he's one of the people that we've talked to. I really like Aaron because, our appeal is to young people. We're trying to make sure that young people are participating in the political process, that they have hope for America. We want somebody, the people who have run up the $34 trillion debt, which they're dumping on that generation, are all older people. And we want somebody young who's going to look out for that generation. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers is battle tested. He's stood up. He's been hammered by the press, stood up for things we believe in. And I like that part of his character. He's a critical thinker. And I think we need that at the time, as the rise of AI. We need people who understand that you cannot always trust authority. Just because somebody's in charge, it doesn't mean that they're telling you the truth. And we want somebody who's going to critically examine. My father used to say, one of the duties of living as a citizen in a democracy is to maintain a constant posture of skepticism toward authority. And I think Aaron's shown that. He's also somebody who I think will help me get the country healthy again. He's 40 years old. He's focused on his own health. He's very aware of health issues. And that's one of the things that's one of the key parts of my agenda, is to get the country healthy.
And we know that.
Do you catch that there at the end? I think he slipped. He said, Aaron Rodgers will help me get the country healthy again, as if it's done. The decision's made, fait accompli. Fascinating, actually. And I wonder how the Jets feel about this, too, or even more importantly, Jets fans, as if they haven't been through enough. Let's think this through for a minute, though. Because when I first saw this and I first heard this, I thought, oh, geez, you know what? Up until now, I thought the RFK Jr. candidacy was going to hurt Joe Biden way more than anyone else, that it really wasn't going to affect Donald Trump. If he does pick Aaron Rodgers, that actually could make a dent. Not a big dent, I don't think, but that could make a difference for the Trump campaign, because I think that there's a lot of young people, especially young men, who really admire and like Aaron Rodgers, and they're probably leaning more toward Trump than toward Biden. And this could actually make a difference. I really do think that. At least that was my initial instinct until I saw what Jake Tapper and CNN did yesterday to Aaron Rodgers. This report right here is probably the most egregious, irresponsible acts of shoddy, disgusting, tabloid gossip journalism you will ever see. And the fact that they're doing it to Aaron Rodgers on the day that it appeared RFK Jr. had made his decision and it was going to be Aaron Rodgers, the fact that they're doing this to try to spike Aaron Rodgers tells me that the powers that be in the Biden White House and the Biden campaign, they put up the flare and they told their friends in the media, Aaron Rodgers has to be destroyed. That tells me that they think Aaron Rodgers was going to hurt them more than Trump. Watch.
In 2013, when CNN's Pamela Brown was covering the Kentucky Derby, she was introduced to Rodgers. Hearing that she was a journalist at CNN, Rodgers began attacking the news media for, quote, covering up important stories. Rodgers then brought up the Sandy Hook shooting and said the news media was intentionally ignoring that the shooting wasn't real, that it was a government inside job. I remind you, the shooting, of course, was very real, very tragic. 20 children and 6 adults were murdered that day. When Pamela Brown asked Aaron Rodgers for evidence of what he was talking about, Rodgers then began sharing various theories that have been disproven numerous times by evidence. Rodgers falsely claimed to Pamela Brown that there were men in black in the woods by the school. And he asked if she thought that was odd. Brown says that she found the entire encounter disturbing.
Yeah, I find that report disturbing. Jake Tapper, just like Don Lemon, considers himself the last real tell it like it is truth teller in Washington, D.C. He's doing the real journalism. Just look how serious he is. I mean, just look at him. Look at how serious he knows that he is. So let's just unpack this story, shall we? A fellow CNN colleague, Pamela Brown, who doesn't appear on camera or actually respond to any questions about this report during this segment, claims that over a decade ago, Aaron Rodgers at the Kentucky Derby started saying things about Sandy Hook conspiracy theories. And she hasn't said anything about it until right now. In fact, over the last 2 years, what's the one thing people have said about Aaron Rodgers? They said that he's been wrapping himself up in COVID-19 vaccine conspiracy theories, right? That's the word that they would use. Oh, he's a vaccine conspiracist. Don't you think that as the media was lining up to tear down Aaron Rodgers over conspiracy theories about the vaccine, that would have been the perfect time to bring out this story? He also believed these conspiracy theories, but of course he didn't. Also, side note, the conspiracy theories that he believes about the vaccines, funny how those conspiracies turned out to be true. Also, Aaron Rodgers, over the last year, he did a one-on-one interview with Bill Maher, and in it, he was very critical of Donald Trump. He talked about Donald Trump in the 2020 presidential campaign, and I paraphrasing him, he said something like, you know, it reaches a point where you got to stop complaining about the last election, man up, accept the loss, and move on. You know, when he said that and he was critical of Donald Trump, Jake Tapper didn't put the red siren out there and deliver breaking news about what a uncredible and unbelievable person Aaron Rodgers is, right? Because at that time, he served the media's purpose. He served Jake Tapper's purpose. Now, as a potential running mate to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that could hurt the Democrats and Joe Biden, now he's a problem. Now he needs to be dealt with. Now we need to line everybody up to destroy him. It sort of calls into question how true this story is, especially given the fact that Jake Tapper's history in bringing breaking news to his viewers involves the very first major story about the Russian collusion dossier. The reason that the mainstream media started reporting on the fake Steele dossier that included Donald Trump allegedly going to Moscow and having prostitutes, forgive me, urinate on a bed in a hotel room. The reason we all know about that story is because Jake Tapper, award-winning journalist, decided that it was newsworthy. And of course, it was a lie. It was a lie. So forgive me for being a little skeptical about the Aaron Rodgers Sandy Hook story. By the way, Kyle Becker, who does some great forensic work on the internet, he actually uncovered a video of what Aaron Rodgers actually did say about the Sandy Hook shooting.
But from lawmakers to celebrities, the whole country really is talking about the people and what happened in Newtown.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers getting in on that as well today. He shares what he hopes will come from this tragedy.
I hope that we can learn from this and look for the signs more and not ever have something like this happen and keep this on our minds, because these are things that affect all of us directly or indirectly. And this needs to be something that we learn from.
There you go. Like a good Berkeley graduate, he wrapped himself up in the whole shooting thing, and I'm sure that he called for gun control. So I guess he will be a good running mate for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But that's actually what he said after the shooting at Sandy Hook. But it's interesting. It's interesting now that to consider looking at how the left-wing media, the corporate media, is lining up against Aaron Rodgers and the idea that he could be a running mate. It's interesting now to consider if this really is a real thing and whether Aaron Rodgers will be the running mate and what that will mean to the presidential campaign and the dynamic here. He recently appeared on Joe Rogan's show, and he had quite a bit to say about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
RFK was trying to do that. Yeah.
Silver standard.
Yeah. Guess what they did to him?
Yeah.
So you see Bobby Kennedy out there. They won't even give him Secret Service protection, which is just egregious. It's so wild. They won't give him. He's the only presidential candidate ever that's been denied Secret Service protection.
3 times, I think, already. Yeah.
It's just they're so f***ing corrupt.
Yeah.
And they're so in your face with it, and no one does anything about it.
You had Bobby on the podcast.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. What'd you think of him?
I love him.
Yeah.
I love. Look, if forget about the vaccine stuff, which I think he's got very good points about all that stuff. There's real data, and if you read his book, if you read the real Anthony Fauci, you would be sick to your stomach if you know the absolute truth. And if it wasn't truth, he'd be sued.
Yeah.
He's not getting sued for a fucking reason. But just that alone. But then if you forget about the vaccine stuff, you just look at his environmental record, what he did when he was an environmental attorney, when he was suing these companies that were,
EPA,
I mean, they cleaned up the Hudson River because of him.
Yeah.
He's an amazing guy. I really love him. And the things that he's been saying about what happened during the pandemic, he had some talk that he did recently, some speech, some conversation he did recently that was public, where he was talking about we're being poisoned by food. And this is why everybody got so sick from COVID. The disparity between people who got COVID and it was just a cold versus people who got COVID and they were deadly ill is 100% what they're eating and what that does to their body and how it compromises their immune system and how it causes comorbidities like diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and obesity.
It's not exactly that simple. And this is my issue with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and sometimes with Joe Rogan as well. No, people weren't getting comorbidities because of what they ate. They were getting comorbidities because how much of it they ate, to be honest, and how little exercise they got. Obesity was definitely directed to it. But the solution from people like this will be, no more corporate farming and no more, various developments in farming and agriculture that have actually helped feed starving people over the last 10 years that would have starved before all of the innovations in agriculture. So let's just stick a pin in this for a second here, because I know that people get excited about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. because he says things that we might believe in, but he is a radical left-wing Democrat. Let's not forget, he wanted to run for the Democrat nomination for a reason. That's what he is. He's a Democrat. And no, he's not a genius when it comes to the climate. He's a radical. He thinks the carbon dioxide is a pollutant. He wants to shut down corporations. I don't want him anywhere near the White House unless it's for some event commemorating the assassination of his uncle. Then he can be a guest at the White House, but I certainly don't want him working there. And I think that it's worth noting that the idea of an Aaron Rodgers, Robert F. Kennedy ticket could, in fact, actually be a huge disruptor in this presidential campaign. And my worry here is that this guy, Joe Rogan, and the people who listen to his show and watch his show, I think they are natural Trump voters, especially if the choice is a binary one between Trump and Biden. And if they are given another lane to go, I'm afraid they might take it. And maybe that will help Biden. It's certainly something to watch. But I will tell you this, if the idea of Aaron Rodgers running with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is so upsetting to Jake Tapper that he would deliver that kind of despicable report, sliming the man through hearsay, well, maybe it's a good thing.